It's a lot more vulnerable to be creative than it is to fit into a popular mold. So, as self-proclaimed fashion lovers, we end up sacrificing the very essence of fashion, creativity, in exchange for guaranteed praise and acceptance. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Phoebe. I recently watched a video by an interior design YouTuber named Noah Daniel, where he talked about his qualms with defining your interior design style. And that video really inspired me to talk about this concept in terms of fashion. A lot of his points can be directly applied to the fashion world, but I have some of my own points as well that I want to hit on. Noah took a bunch of interior design styles and divided them into 4 categories. So I Googled the most popular fashion aesthetics and divided them into those same categories as well. And I'm going to talk about my own qualms with them and why I think they're ruining your intuitive sense of style. First category of aesthetics is regional. And by that, I mean aesthetics like country, beachy, French, etc. And Noah Daniel talks about this idea of response to context in interior design, meaning as much as you may love an aesthetic, if you love a coastal home aesthetic, it still doesn't make sense to design your New York City apartment in a very coastal, beachy way. There are tasteful ways to do it very subtly, but slapping an entire coastal aesthetic into that New York City apartment doesn't make sense and doesn't properly respond to the context that it's in and doesn't add to an actual sense of place. And I think the exact same principle can be applied to fashion. It's totally okay not to want to dress like everyone around you and not to want to fit into the exact aesthetic that everyone in your city dresses like. And it's totally okay not to want to completely change your style just because you move to a different kind of place. But if you truly value fashion and value the role that clothing is supposed to play in our lives, you may want to consider your environment and what you're actually going to be doing that day before blindly dressing to fit into a certain aesthetic. There's no right and wrong in fashion, just like there's no right and wrong in interior design. It's expression and it's subjective. But there's something really respectable about an outfit that subtly tells you something about a person's style and preferences while still making sense in the context that it's in. Expression doesn't always have to be a loud, out of place statement. I've talked in previous videos about how I've recently been finding myself getting really inspired by people like my mom who aren't chronically online. She dresses based on what she likes and where she is and what she's doing. Responding to context is something that people who aren't chronically online do really well. And to go even further, for people that aren't even into fashion at all, responding to context is pretty much all they do when they get dressed. And I feel like that idea of responding to context and dressing in a way that's really functional and makes a lot of sense based on where we are and what we're doing and where we're going is something that we kind of lose the more into fashion we get. Dressing in a way that makes sense can still be very fashionable. You don't always have to cram as many trends and as many elements of juxtaposition as you possibly can into your outfit to demonstrate that you're a fashion girly. And I'm using girly as a gender neutral term here. The next category of aesthetics is time periods. So it can be specific decades like 80s, 90s, Y2K, or words like vintage and antique. Time periods can be really helpful descriptors when we're describing, certain fashion icons or the birth of certain trends or specific clothing items that were actually made in that decade. But when you think about it, it's quite strange to use an entire time period to describe your personal style. I've done it before and I'll probably do it again. This video is not me calling anyone out for using these descriptors. It's more of an open exploration of what these descriptors actually mean and when it makes sense to use them. I've used the 90s as a descriptor of my personal style, but how many aesthetics and styles and trends actually made up that entire decade? Maybe I like more styles from the 90s than I do from any other decade. But if I box myself into one decade of fashion and only allow myself to wear pieces from that decade or pieces that look like they're from that decade, suddenly my style isn't influenced by pieces that I loved from the 90s. Suddenly my style is a replica that looks very costumey. It's also very unlikely that you'll be able to source an entire wardrobe of pieces that are actually from the 90s. So chances are holding yourself to one decade of fashion will result in purchasing these themey fast fashion dupes of trends from that decade. It's perfectly valid to say that the 1990s is my favorite era of fashion, but it makes less sense to describe my personal style as 90s. The next category of aesthetics is meaningless adjectives. And these are things like classic. Classic in terms of what? Traditional. Traditional when? Traditional where? Normcore. Normal in terms of what? Artsy, basic, edgy, eclectic, timeless. Again, I ask in terms of what? And then our final category is newly invented aesthetics. These are things like coastal grandma, dark and light academia, mob wife, coastal cowgirl, coquette, ballet core, quiet luxury. I think of these all as chronically online Pinterest and TikTok aesthetics. And I really don't want to come off as a pessimistic or elitist person that turns my nose up at Gen Z TikTok trends. They're not stupid, they're fun. And I think it's really cute and wholesome to think about an entire generation coming together and getting excited about these styles and sharing ideas. It's such a fun part of fashion, and I don't want to yuck people's yums in that way. But I will say, these extremely specific descriptors, while maybe inspiring at first, can really pigeonhole your style for like 2 months and then make you feel like shit when the next cool aesthetic comes around and yours becomes very last year. They're really trends disguised as personal styles. They add to the never-ending, ever-shortening trend cycle that makes you feel like you need to constantly be on social media in order to dress well and keep up and look like you're in the know with fashion. A lot of these adjectives that I've mentioned can be really useful if we know truly what they mean and when to use them. Vintage, for example, is a legitimately useful word in the world of fashion. If you want to find a clothing piece that's between 20 and 100 years old, vintage is a word you can use when you're searching for it. It's your actual criteria that you have in mind. However, if you search vintage aesthetic on Pinterest, you'll see tons of outfits and tons of ideas, but I'm willing to bet that not all of them are actually vintage pieces. They're vintage coded outfits that have that kind of aesthetic without being true vintage, meaning you can go on Shein and purchase a ton of vintage inspired pieces and get that vintage aesthetic that you saw on Pinterest. But in that case, I don't think it would make sense to describe your style as vintage. We're human beings. Our instinct is to label things. It makes us feel like we're part of a community when we find other people that dress like we do. When you meet someone who dresses in a way that you love or in a way that's similar to how you dress, you might feel an immediate sort of level of unspoken understanding between you two. So it's natural to want to label your style or fit your style into an already existing label so that you can easily find your fashion peers online and easily find more inspiration that confirms what you like and feel like you're in a fashion community. And it's also tempting to assign your style a label so that you don't have to rely on your own judgment all the time to formulate an outfit. When you don't know what to wear to a concert, if you know the name of a certain aesthetic you like, you can search coquette festival outfit on Pinterest and a ton of ideas will come up. But if we truly love fashion, why would we want to bypass the actual creative process? Why would we want to ask our phone what to wear? And I feel like the answer brings us full circle back around to the idea of community. We believe if we dress in a certain universally known aesthetic, we will automatically be guaranteed acceptance by that fashion community. Whereas if we rely on our own judgment to create an outfit without any outside input, we're not guaranteed approval by anyone. It's a lot more vulnerable to be creative than it is to fit into a popular mold. So as self-proclaimed fashion lovers, we end up sacrificing the very essence of fashion, creativity, in exchange for guaranteed praise and acceptance. And by creativity, I don't necessarily mean dressing in this totally out there way that screams creative. I'm just referring to the act of making choices, sifting and sorting and finding things we like and putting them together in ways that please us is a creative process, no matter how simple or extravagant it turns out. All of these descriptors like vintage and French and Y2K and even coastal cowgirl can be useful when we're searching for for a specific piece, but using them to describe our entire personal style stifles our creativity before we even begin the creative process of choosing what to wear. I'm not about to compare fashion to politics, but I'm about to compare fashion to politics. Choosing your outfit based on the label you've already assigned your aesthetic is like choosing what to believe in based on the political party that you've always identified with. With regards to politics, it's better to figure out what you believe in and then decide who it makes sense to endorse. With regard to fashion, it's better to buy pieces you like and combine them into outfits that you like, and then decide what word makes sense to describe that outfit, if there's even a reason to describe your outfit in the first place. Again, the last thing I want to do on this channel is yuck people's fashion yums. If you love dressing in the coastal grandma aesthetic, please don't stop doing that. I just want to challenge you to think about why you like that aesthetic. What elements of that aesthetic were you drawn to? When you make a purchase, is it because that piece stuck out as feeling very you, it screams you? Or did you buy that piece because it stuck out as very coastal grandma? Are you dressing in that way because it's still super exciting to you and it feels like it really aligns with your innate taste? Or is there part of you that dresses that way so that you can make a TikTok of your outfit and be known as a coastal grandma fashion girl? As long as you're making choices based on your innate taste and intuitive preferences, you're doing it right. If those natural choices lead you to a very coastal grandma-esque style, amazing. If those choices lead you to a style that you don't even know how to describe, also amazing. And if this video made you want to forget everything you know about online fashion, I have a video called Where to Get Fashion Inspiration that's not Pinterest or Instagram that really talks about figuring out what your style would be if we weren't in a chronically online generation. Let me know if this video resonates with you at all and if you have anything to add, and let me know if you disagree with anything I said. I love hearing different perspectives. I think different opinions is one of the most exciting things about fashion, and the reason I love making these videos is to share opinions, so I would love to hear your own thoughts in the comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to. And with that, I'll see you in a few days with another one. Bye, guys.